All right, everybody, welcome back to the Millennial Sales Podcast. This is episode 222. Happy Monday. This is the podcast. If you're new, this is where we, as young sellers, learn how to make more money, how to sell more, how to grow in our career, hone our craft, all of those good things. And, this is where we learn. So one episode per week, we get a fellow millennial salesperson that we can learn from and help boost them up. And then otherwise, we get top CEOs and VPs to tell us about their career path. So today is the former. Got Katie Thomas, Enterprise AE at Salesforce. Before we get into her, let's do a quick shout out and throw some love to the sponsors of this show. Number one, Gong.io. What can I say? I love it so much that I went to work there as an AE. It is the best sales invention in the history of sales inventions. It's irresponsible for a VP of sales or CRO not to have this for their organization. It's the number one revenue intelligence platform. If you want to learn more, head over to gong.io, or you can just DM me on LinkedIn. I'm Tom Alemo at LinkedIn, and I will connect you with the right person over at Gong to help out. So check them out, show some love. The second sponsor that we have is postal.io. Postal, in a world where we're trying to scale things and grow things and automate, Postal kind of takes the opposite approach for sending things to your customers and prospects and partners, helps you to really personalize that, whether it's the brewery across town, the florist on your local corner, it helps you to really personalize that outreach to them. So they're doing a special thing. Anyone that goes to Apple Podcasts, leaves a 5-star review for this show, you DM that to me, that whole process right there, that'll take you 48 seconds. If you do that, the review, and you send it to me, I will give you a Starbucks gift card. Grab your cappuccino, your Americano, your coffee cake, one of those cake pops, whatever it is that you want, whatever your jam is, you can go hook it up. So appreciate Postal. You can check them out at postal.io as well. So throw some love to our sponsors. Let's get into this topic for today. Talk to Katie Thomas, Enterprise AE in the high-tech sector over at Salesforce. She's down in San Diego, has a pass of actually a return. What do they call that? A boomerang from Salesforce, went over to Verkada and back to Salesforce, formerly a D1 swimmer. So we talk about a lot of great topics. Really excited to share this conversation with you. Again, if you like it, throw us some love either on LinkedIn or in the Apple podcast review situation. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Katie Thomas. Let's go. All right, Katie Thomas, welcome to the Millennial Sales Podcast. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you, Tom?
I am doing well. It's what'd you call it? Friday Junior or Junior?
Mini Friday,
Mini Friday.
Junior. Yeah, exactly. My second favorite day of the week.
There you go. There you go. Especially when it's close to, well, maybe not for you at Salesforce, but for me, end of quarter. So it's a crazy time.
Yeah, I can imagine. That'll be me in about a month from now. Our Q1 ends in April. So yeah.
Do you like that it's like that 1 month over from like the normal calendar? I'm always curious about that.
Yeah, I do. And I think that Salesforce does it right because really how most companies, how most organizations plan their fiscal year is on the calendar, right? So, from a Salesforce standpoint, we'll spend, maybe the better part of a year planning for a project. And then, their budget will open up in January, which is when our fiscal year ends. So we're able to close a lot of deals that way. So the slightly offset alignment works out really well from a revenue standpoint for us.
Nice.
Yeah.
I've always kind of envied the people that just thinking that maybe they don't have those end of year deals like on Christmas or on New Year's, like maybe you can enjoy those holidays. That's always been kind of like a fantasy of mine.
Yeah. That's also why I like it. Actually, that's a great point. I don't have to spend Christmas Day, glued to my laptop, or New Year's Eve, on phone calls, can be out doing some fun stuff with friends and family.
Yeah. Nice. So look, before we get to sales stuff, I always am interested in people's kind of backstories, how they get into sales. Like you are a D1 athlete, swimmer, So I imagine maybe that you were like really competitive and got introduced to the world of sales like that way from like the athlete side. Is that what happened?
In a sense, yeah. So my degree is actually in kinesiology and health sciences, which,
Okay.
is obviously very science focused. And I really kind of fell in love with kinesiology and, exercise science, however you want to call it, my senior year of high school. I really wanted to take anatomy and physiology. However, my high school didn't offer that course for some reason. So every day I'd go to the next closest school that offered that class. And it ended up being my favorite class my entire, high school academic career. And it wasn't even at my school. And I had a really great teacher. And so she just made everything so interesting and so easy to learn. So that was really kind of how I started down that path. But, fast forward to, my sophomore, junior year of college, I kind of realized that I didn't, this is going to sound bad, but I didn't want to go to school anymore. I didn't want to go to med school anymore. I didn't want to go to PT school anymore. But I'm very money motivated. In addition to swimming and schoolwork, I also was a swim coach in college and a nanny as well. So, I found that the harder I worked, the more money I got, the longer hours I worked, the more time I put in, the bigger, direct deposit was. And so I was like, I wonder what I can start doing right after school that's going to, kind of give me that same effect on my bank account, right? Yeah. And funny enough, I happened to be connected to a guy by the name of Kyle Feaster. He also works at Salesforce now. He is a strategic B2B commerce account executive. And so 6 years ago, I was introduced to him through, a mutual connection. And, he's quite a bit older than I am. So he had already had a really well-established sales career at that point. And he really kind of guided me in terms of how to break into sales, made introductions for me, when I was a senior in college. And I actually spent spring break my senior year of college. I flew out from the East Coast, where I was in school at William & Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia, to do interviews in San Francisco instead, because I was so motivated to have essentially a job offer in my hand before I had my diploma in my hand, of which my mom was very grateful for. She's like, don't come back home. No, I'm just kidding. So I that's what I did. And funny enough, I ended up not getting any of those jobs I interviewed for, but rather one that I did a remote interview for back in my apartment in college. So I started out as an SDR at a company called Initas, which is now owned by a larger company called PlanView. And then I kind of got pulled aside or tapped on the shoulder, I guess would be a better way to phrase it, by a gentleman by the name of Ryan O'Neill, who was one of Kyle's mentors. And he said, hey, I'm going to work at a startup. And Kyle said that you're a really great SDR. Would you have any interest in being, one of the first SDR BDRs at this startup, which was Scout RFP, which has since been acquired by Workday. And I said, yeah, absolutely. I'd love to learn from you. He also had a Salesforce background. So I knew that I was going to get a really great, sales education, as they call it, from Ryan. And it kind of just went from there. It really stuck. I never really felt compelled to try another role. Of course, the paychecks were very motivating to kind of keep me where I was at. And I was learning so much. And I'm sure you could agree, being in sales yourself, there like so many aspects of one's life, you can tie back to sales, right? And,
totally.
Just conversationally convincing people to do things, not to do things, but trying to sell them on something, an idea or yourself. And I really just it opened up my eyes to a completely different line of work. And I know that there's just so much room for growth in any sales organization for the most part, right? You can become a manager, you can become a senior AE, you can go enterprise, you can become a VP or director, whatever you have your eyes set on. So I really saw the limitless potential there. And that's kind of what's kept me around as well.
I love it. And you've had great stints at Scout, at Salesforce, going to Verkada, now back to Salesforce.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear any tips. I think there's a lot of people listening that would say, man, I would kill to be a great sales rep at a great company, like Salesforce, who I think a lot of people can look at as one of the gold standards for for sales excellence. I mean, they kind of created software selling in a lot of respects. So I'd love to hear any tips, any thoughts you have for other millennial sellers that you've picked up along the way.
Yeah, I would say one thing that has really kind of kept me on my path is staying true to myself, in the sense that, I'm very honest with myself about what I like, what I dislike, whether it be about a specific role or manager that I might have, or whether it's the product itself, right? Like, is this something that gets me out of bed every day? And really thinking about your why as well. When your alarm goes off, every morning, what is it that's, that invisible force that's pulling you out of bed every morning, especially now when I think a lot of us, our desks are rather close to our bed as well. And it can become, very repetitive, right? You're waking up every day and you're like, okay, like here we go again. It's like Groundhog Day. I think we're all feeling that by now. Yeah. So yeah, just really kind of staying true to myself, what I care about, like I moved down to San Diego in September, and it was just something I wanted to do. And I really just kept in the forefront of my mind, like, do what makes you happy, and the rest will follow. So that's really kind of what's been my, I guess you could say, guiding light, guiding principle, throughout my entire career at this point.
I love that. And I think it's, there's a lot of folks that come on here and like, really kind of vouch for the better that you're taken care of, the better your life is, the better that you are doing mentally and in your flow. Obviously, the better you are going to be professionally. Those things are super tied together. Like if your head's not right, it's hard to expect that you're going to come into the office, AKA the other part of your apartment, or just slightly away from your bed to your desk, however you have it set up, and do a good job. So I think that's so true.
Yeah, I also, you've probably heard this. I heard it maybe about a year ago when COVID started, was that you can't pour from an empty cup. You really have to prioritize yourself first. Putting your slack on, a 30-minute break, going outside for a walk, just pushing yourself back from your computer screen, closing your eyes, meditating, whatever that may be, because it's very easy to get burnt out in sales. And it's almost threefold during, COVID, right? So just prioritizing your mental and physical health, I think goes a super long way. And I'm very, very thankful that I work for an organization that meets that value. It's one of the biggest reasons I came back. I need to be in an environment where when I say, hey, I need a mental health day, I need a wellness day, that's what we call it at Salesforce. I have full support from my management to do that, which I do. It's amazing. She said, like, hey, don't be afraid to ask for wellness days. If you need it, take it. What we're doing is not easy. We're all feeling it. We're a year into COVID. So yeah, I feel very supported by that. And again, that's one of the reasons why I came back, just that shared value.
Yeah, I was curious why, because there was the company that I worked for when I first graduated. I was there for about 5 years, and they had they had a culture of people that would leave and they would come back. And I think that says a lot about the type of company you work for, and the values that they have. And that was something I was curious. Is there anything is that like the main thing, kind of like that value that you share? I was just curious if there's anything else that in particular why you came back, because I'm sure you could have gotten hired at thousands of places, but you decided to go back there.
Yeah, that was a huge part of it, the shared values, right? Trust is another Salesforce value. And feeling like I could be trusted as a remote rep, and that I am trusted as a remote rep, just really makes me feel good about what I'm doing, right? I don't feel as if I'm being micromanaged at any point, and also specific to Salesforce, right? We have 55,000 employees, and an embarrassment of resources, quite frankly, whether it's collateral for products or just, people resources, someone to talk to, right? And just knowing that that's what I would be coming back to in such a crazy time, it was kind of a no-brainer, because kind of like what you said, I was talking to other companies right during the interview process, and I just knew in the back of my head, I was like, I need to go back to Salesforce, right? So yeah, just sharing that and knowing that I'd be fully supported in whatever life choices I would make, really is how I stay asleep at night.
Yeah, I think that's super important to have. I'm curious, like, do you sell one product, or do you sell the whole fleet there? Or
I sell most of it. Two products that I do that are not in my bag are MuleSoft and Marketing Cloud. But yeah, I can sell pretty much anything else that we've got, which just learning the products is a job in and of itself. And I'm very lucky that I had the background that I did, being a BDR and an AE at Salesforce. I had all that background, foundational knowledge that I could sort of lean on when I came back and in a way pick up where I left off. And I jokingly refer to my time in between Salesforce roles as my year abroad.
Yeah.
You leave, you come back, everything's kind of the same, but you've got a new teacher, there's new people in your class, you kind of, you're in a different grade, let's call it, right? But I know I was really, really happy to come back. It definitely felt like a bit of a homecoming for me, for sure. Getting Slack messages from people that I, once was on a team with or on the same floor with, it was just like, oh, like I'm home. So it was such a great feeling. And once you can find that feeling at an organization, really kind of get ingrained in it, because it's invaluable.
Totally. And what would you, what advice would you have? I imagine it's hard for someone to come into an organization like Salesforce now, remote, 55,000 employees. If you don't know people, you're not going into the office, and you can maybe feel like you might get lost in the shuffle. So I'm curious, like from your point of view, is there anything that you'd recommend? Like if someone started there today, like to really kind of like build up a community internally or with your peers or otherwise? I don't know if they have programs, but I feel for someone that comes in to such a large company, if you don't know anyone and there's no in-person presence at all.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That is a phenomenal question. And it's fun. And I'm glad you asked that, because a friend of mine who I've known for about 4 years now actually just recently joined my team. And so I had this exact conversation with him. And I would say one of the biggest things is to really get to know your team on a personal level, right? I think most sales teams, I know mine does, we have a team Slack channel that is all of us with my manager. And then we have one that's just us, that players only kind of title, right? And so, just being like if you are a friendly and outgoing person, which most salespeople are, lean on that, right? Like get to know your people on your team, meet with them on some sort of cadence and understand, them as a person. And in addition to that, like join employee resource groups. If your company offers that, we have a ton at Salesforce, the Salesforce Women's Network. We have a Bold group. We have like Asia Pac support groups as well, diversity and inclusion groups, LGBTQ allies, all sorts of things. So I kind of think of it very similar to going to college, right? You're coming here, you may not really know anyone or just a couple of people, and you have to kind of create your own home within your home for yourself. And so finding, that like extracurricular, let's call it, that you really love and can enjoy, I think makes the experience all that better. And then, leveraging people that maybe you don't directly support or that aren't on your team, asking your manager for introductions like, hey, I'm really curious to learn about like what our financial services vertical does. Maybe you're in a different vertical. Just curious, like I would love to learn about what they do. Can you connect me to someone there? Because the managers at Salesforce are usually promoted from within. Like, you've had Nick Fedotov on here. I've never met him in person, but I've heard his name 1,000 times from just friends and colleagues of mine. And so, that's exactly what I mean. It's a word of mouth thing. And you just try to get to know people, remotely, build a rapport with them. And I think that, that comes with building your brand too. Hey, Tom is really eager to learn, right? He wants to understand how we do things here, and leverage them kind of as a mentor down the road when you feel like you've kind of earned that relationship.
Yeah, totally. And I couldn't vouch for Nick Fedotov any more highly. That guy's on. I love that guy.
Yeah, he's great.
And I'm curious for if we kind of take a step back to just like your learning process also as a salesperson. I'm always fascinated by like if there's books, if there's podcasts, if there's resources that people follow that have helped them, that they recommend to people, that they, I don't know, are interested in even just at this moment. I'm curious if there's been anything like that has been a spark for you, and really any topic, I guess, is fair game. I'm curious.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I will admit I'm not a huge book reader. I quite frankly don't really have a great attention span to be able to sit there and just get so engrossed in a book. It's just not a skill that I have, and I wish I did because I'm very envious of the people that do. But I really try to get books like that are both personal and professional. And when I say personal, I mean things that interest you. It could be nonfiction books. It could be a book about, like, I don't know, how to like grow a garden or something like that. It could have nothing to do with your professional career. And so, whereas what I'm trying to get at here is, there's books like Challenger Sale. My manager sent us all carry that quota. And so what I try to do to get what I want out of that, book without, getting sick of it in a way is, read like what the chapters are about. Find something that like pops out to you and like just read that chunk of whatever it may be, right? Because like, let's face it, books aren't always the most exciting, but they're very helpful. So that's kind of how I've found what works for me, is to kind of look through, see what's in that book. If there's a couple of things that I want to learn about or that interest me, that's kind of what I read about. And then I'll kind of go back to it and say like, okay, I read about this, this, and this. Let me learn about this, this, and this now. And I think it makes it a lot more digestible, little bits of information here and there, rather than just throwing it all at you and doing a brain dump. But in terms of learning, I really learn by doing. And I know that that's kind of like a weird answer to that question, but like, for an example, how to build out a quote for a certain type of thing, like I would much rather get in there and do it myself and, mess it up a bunch of times rather than having someone try to verbally explain it to me or like write out and explain it, because that's just not how I'm going to learn, by doing. And I think one of the great things about working at Salesforce is, we drink our own Kool-Aid, right? And so when I'm talking to a current customer or a prospect, I can really speak to like, hey, this is how I use Sales Cloud. This is how, I use Tableau. This is how I create reports and dashboards. And you gain a lot of credibility that way. So I'm a big high quality information in little chunks person, and then learn by doing as well.
I love it. Well, there's a million different ways to learn. So I love it.
There's no one size fits all.
Totally.
And I think even too, individually, those the way that you learn changes over time, right? As you let's say, you grow up, maybe you have a baby, you don't have the time to sit down and dedicate to, whatever it may be. So you have to kind of adapt to that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I know we're getting somewhat close on time. I'm curious, like any other thoughts, tips, last words for the folks out there listening that we didn't get to yet?
Absolutely. One thing that I definitely wanted to be sure to share with everyone listening is be memorable, right? And I heard that from a sales leader a really long time ago. Gosh, I wish I could remember who it was, but be memorable, right? Because the reality is companies all over the world are getting hit up by salespeople for everything, right? We're all just out here trying to do our jobs. We're all just trying to make money, pay the bills, put food on the table, clothes on our backs. And so if you can be memorable, and whether that's your personality, your selling style, what it is you're selling, I have found that goes a lot farther, because what I want my customers to think is, oh, hey, like I really need a marketing automation tool. Okay, like let me think about what I know is in this space. Oh, I think Salesforce has something like that. Oh, I know Katie's our account rep. We've talked 200 times, right? And she's already kind of covered that. I remember that. I remember like a value statement that she shared with me. So guess who's going to get that first call? Me, right? And so or at least I hope so.
Yeah.
And so that's really kind of one of my like mantras, right? Just be memorable. Have something you're known for.
How do you do that?
Yeah, I was just going to say, have something you're known for, right? I am exactly how I am talking to you on my sales calls. I don't put on like a overly professional tone. I love to joke on calls. Because at the end of the day, we're all human. And with everything being remote, you have to, in my opinion, find other ways to let your light shine through the computer screen. And so, yeah, that, like, for me, it's just being myself, right? Like staying true to yourself, kind of like I talked about, being memorable, and providing value. I think those two things go hand in hand as well.
I love it. I love it. Katie Thomas, I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure and an honor.
And if people want to get in touch following the show and reach out and connect with you, what's the best place for them to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. It's Katie M. Thomas, or you can email me at katiethomas@salesforce.com. It's KATIETHOMAS@salesforce.com. I'm happy to chat with anyone.
I love it. And I particularly enjoyed that last tip around being memorable, because especially, I guess the one last thing I would say on that, from my own perspective too, is like, people have so much shit going on, like a million different things, know, and only a part of that is their job, but they've got their family and they're this and they're that, and like everything that's happening right now. And so they don't have a lot of time to be like thinking about, which sales rep should I go to for this purchase, or, who did I talk to 6 months ago? Like, so if you don't stick out in their mind for some reason that you did a great job, that you connected, that you were valuable, that, you had a personality to you, you got along, all those different things, whatever your unique flair is, then when that time comes up, they are going to call someone else and not you. And so being able to kind of make that lasting impression is really irreplaceable.
Couldn't agree more. And I'm glad you agree too. And hopefully you'll be able to apply that in your day-to-day if you're not already, and hopefully you'll get great results out of it. I'm sure you will.
Yeah, well, I'll be working on it. Katie, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I hope you have a great weekend. Talk to you soon.
All right, everybody, thanks for checking out that podcast while you're walking the dog, while you're cooking up your stir fry, while you're at the gym, whatever you're doing. Two things. Number one, please head over to Apple and give this show a 5-star review. Send that to me on LinkedIn, and I'll give you a free Starbucks gift card. Would really appreciate it. That's what helps this show to grow. Should only take you a minute. And second, one more shout out to our sponsors, Gong and Postal. Please give those folks a shout out. Hit them up on LinkedIn. Check out their websites. They can do wonders for your business. That's all I got for you today. Peace.